Hello, everybody. It's Adrian Plas here yet again.
And it's Bridget yet again.
Yeah. And just to keep you up to date with the incredible jigsaw, the Monet jigsaw, it's proceeding like a snail. It's very, very slow. You made a bit of movement.
Well, I have made a bit of a movement, but the only problem is that I've done a whole block of sort of brownie stuff and I can't see where that goes at all. So it just sits in the very middle, waiting for its home, I would like to say.
I'm really hoping Monet will be in heaven because I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. Anyway, the thing we did enjoy yesterday, Palm Sunday, was going to this place here, actually, right where we are. I was going to say going to church, but we did in a way. We sat here and we put our phone on, and a service was streamed from the church, and including going to many people's homes and getting contributions from their prayers and all sorts of things. And the church leader, who has an excellent name, he's called Adrian, was leading it very efficiently as usual. And we sang some stuff, which was great. And it wasn't a perfect service. As Adrian said, it's the first time we've done it. And I reckon we did pretty well. And we did really enjoy it, didn't we?
You know what? I thought that was what it was all about, really. I think we must be a technologically challenged church on the whole, including us. I mean, we panicked so much about putting our microphone on and not being able to mute it that we didn't put it on at all. But there was something so lovely about that, you know, that it, in a technological age, it's so easy to get upset if the sound isn't great or if something goes slightly wrong. And
I think there's something about untidy goodwill that is very, very endearing. I think my favourite moment, and this would be inexplicable to anyone who didn't know what was going on, was when a message appeared on the screen saying, "Hazel, you've unmuted yourself." I mean, it sounds as though something really dreadful has been done by Hazel in the privacy of her own home. But, of course, it just meant she hadn't unmuted herself, which was... she had unmuted herself, which was not required at that particular moment.
But
it was
like
great
the
time.
Heart, isn't it? And I know this is going on all over the country, of people desperately trying to reach each other and smile at each other and say, "Hello, you. Here I am. There you are." And to somehow hold on to each other through all this.
And I think, to be honest, you discover something more of community in the untidiness of that, as I said before, than you do when it is perfectly organised.
Yeah.
We reached the beginning of Holy Week.
Yes.
And it's an odd time, obviously. It's Holy Week. It's leading up to Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection, and a bad week for him as he looked forward through this week. And I was wondering, and you'll see why I'm asking this in a minute, I was wondering how your mum would have coped, and my mum, with what's going on at the moment.
Well, your mum, even though she spent the last 8 years paralysed down one side and in a wheelchair, would have desperately tried to get out to help absolutely everybody in the village and took very little notice until told. My mum was extraordinarily obedient, really, and an absolute stoic. Her faith never wavered, and she would have buckled down and done what was required. I think we used that quote, didn't we, from Winston Churchill once before, saying sometimes it's not enough to do your best, you have to do what is required. And she would have jolly well done it.
Your mother was amazing. She was an old-fashioned Christian in the sense that she didn't study her navel very much, but she knew what was what, she knew what was required, and when it was required, she jolly well did it.
Yeah.
And I really respected her for that. And that's why I mentioned her, because I wanted us to just think about obedience today, which is, I think, more important perhaps than we realise. It's not easy. I remember a man came to see me after a talk one day and said, "I've been asking God for 20 years to make me obedient." And I said, "I don't think you quite grasp the concept, have you? You have to actually be obedient. It's something to do with what you do and what your will do. And you have to practice it." I remember years ago going to Spring Harvest, and
Oh yes, do tell that story because it's my favourite.
Well, it's a story I love really. But I went to Spring Harvest and I was a speaker, going to be a speaker, and I got to my chalet. Those who haven't been, you go to a chalet and it has a bathroom and a sitting room and bedrooms, and you have about 3 people staying in each chalet. I got to my chalet. I went to my room. I was the first one there. And I opened my bag and I took out my stack of food. I always still do, a stack of food. And on this occasion, I brought tea and coffee, of course, so that I could have that. I brought a very, very nice crusty loaf. I had brought some butter, real butter. I had brought some fairy cakes where you get 6 in a bag and iced, and I just love them.
They're absolutely disgusting.
French fancies, I think they're called.
Oh no, they're dreadful.
They're wonderful. And I put all my food on a shelf in the bedroom, and I looked at it like Gollum, and I was saying, "You're mine. You are mine." And suddenly I caught myself, and I thought, "You've come to Spring Harvest to talk to people about God. You can't even share your cheese and pickle." I was planning to leave it all in my room, and I thought, "Oh no!" So I took all the food out and I took it to the kitchen, the shared kitchen, and I put it all in there. I didn't want to. Most of life, I'm afraid, is a choice between what you don't want and what you really don't want.
That's right.
I didn't want to share my French fancies. But I really didn't want to be a Christian who couldn't share his cheese and pickle and French fancies. So I did put it there. But those choices, small or large, present themselves to us every day. And I think it's like everything else. If you don't practice those things, when you have the chance to succeed, you won't get the encouragement and the drive to do it again.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you to remember a time in Australia when we were there, when we heard a really wonderful story on the same subject.
Do you know what? This happened a long time ago, but it's remained for me one of the clearest pictures of giving and of obedience. It was somebody we met. We didn't actually meet the person involved. We met her carer. I'm going to call the person involved Millie. And Millie had a carer because even though she was about 23, 24, actually she functioned around the age of about 7 to 8. She loved going to church. She particularly loved the singing. But the very favourite bit for her was the moment when they passed a plate round and you put money in the plate. This fascinated her. But it hadn't been part of what she was able to do. And then one day she had some money. She had a purse. And in her purse she had 2 coins. Now this is where it gets a bit tricky because I'm going to have to try and describe these coins to you. She had 2 coins. One of them was a 50-cent piece. Now that's a pretty big coin. For those of us in the UK, it's quite a bit bigger and thicker and tougher than our 50p coin. And she had a $2 coin, which is really pretty small and smaller than our pound
coin. Tiny
yeah,
coin.
really small. So she had 50 cents and she had $2. She jiggled and wiggled until finally the moment came and the collection plate was coming along the aisle to her. And at that moment, she panicked. And she turned to her carer. She looked at her coins. She saw that other people were just putting 1 coin in. And she said, "Which one? Which one for Jesus?" And her carer said that for a moment she panicked. She didn't want to patronise Millie and say, "Oh, sweetheart, put in the one that's not so valuable." Neither, obviously, did she want to take advantage of her. And she said... And she says that actually she was copping out, really. She said, "Ask Jesus." Well, Millie took it very seriously. She screwed her eyes up. She thought, she prayed, and finally she took out the $2 coin.
The tiny one.
The tiny one, the $2 coin. She leant her hand over the plate, and then suddenly she pulled it back, put it back in her purse, took out the 50-cent coin, the big fat coin, and she said, "No, the big one for Jesus." You know, there are some amazing things that happen in our lives that become almost parables for us, really. And this one has never, ever left either Adrian or I, is the fact that if you give away the thing that you think is the most valuable, you're actually left with something worth a great deal more. And that is almost, I suppose, the sort of joy of obedience, that somehow you're left with something that is all right.
Yeah, it's not an easy concept to get your head round, but I think as we're going through Holy Week, the idea that you allow, and this is easy to say, allow God to take the things from you that perhaps you have always thought important, but are beginning to see are not as important as you thought, we might be left with something really fantastic. I thought I would like to read a poem to you. It's called Promises. And it's really about letting God do the stuff that needs to be done in our lives. I read it to you. Strange God, Lord, Jesus, Saviour, friend, what can I promise you? Only one thing with no shadow of a doubt. I promise I will let you down. I feel quite sure that there will be some courtyard somewhere where a fire burns and the crowds are gathered and the test will come, and I shall feel my stomach lurch with fear. I know what I am liable to do. I'll blow my stack and throw you to the wolves and let them tear your name to shreds. Probably retreat and come to with a shock to find myself on some sad corner of the street, lingering and lost beneath a lamppost in the rain. And then I'll weep and wish that I could die and hope that I need never see your disappointed face again. And then, of course, my strange, close, persistent friend, you'll keep your promise, won't you? To love me, love me, love me. How could you do otherwise? It is the way that you are made. I fear I have not yet received sufficient grace to smile when I am punished with such unrestrained compassion. All in all, I do not have the wisdom nor the power, sometimes not the will, to make wild promises about the things that I shall do. It might be better if I just take your hand and try to do my best, however feeble that may prove to be, and I'll leave all the promising to you.
So this week, at a time when we might feel so much has been taken from us, we do have an opportunity maybe to say, I will be obedient this week. I will walk with you. I have walked into Jerusalem with you. There is an amazing little piece from Hebrews, if anyone wants to look it up. It's Hebrews 13, 11 to 14. The high priest carries the blood of animals into the most holy place as a sin offering, but the bodies are burned outside the camp. And so Jesus also suffered outside the city gate to make the people holy through his own blood. Let us then go to him outside the camp, bearing the disgrace he bore. For here we do not have an enduring city, but we are looking for a city that is to come.
It's worth going and looking at that verse, and we could take it to pieces, but I don't think we have time now. The only other thing I'd really like to say is that I heard someone say the other day, we're all bearing a cross at the moment. I think whoever said that hasn't quite understood what a cross is. Certainly for Christians, the cross is a sign that you have agreed to do something outrageously bad in order to help and save others. And one thing we can do this week, I think, is to look at the difficulties and the worry and the fear and the depression and accept that cross as something that could help others. There is a weird mechanism that goes on in this world, spiritual world, not to deny what's happening, but to take it and give it and let it go and say, can you use this? Now that may seem odd, but I think we should be having a go at that, because it might make us feel better and it might help a lot of other people. So here we go on this week. I hope you'll be with us through the week. We shall be here every single day, and we shall look forward to it. We're having a great time doing this, aren't we?
We're really enjoying being with you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.